the last thing I wanted to show you now is GUIs, and this, the last thing, this is kind of a big thing. Up till this point, all of our output has been in the console, but we can do better than that. We can do like little localized apps. Now, the world has generally moved on a lot from localized apps, so this is kind of an interim step to just learning how to create an interface between your program and the real world. More realistically, your interface when you're working out in the working world is either going to be on the web or it's going to be in an app. This is kind of something that used to be commonplace, where you would put up a screen with buttons on it and boxes on it and text fields on it, and you could run it localized. You don't see this as much anymore, but it is definitely worth understanding, again, as an interim step to moving towards bigger things. So I'm going to start with a very simple GUI. And I've got all of this down the screen here in commented out sections as we build more functionality into it. But the first thing we have to do is import tkinter. That is what we'll be utilizing for our GUI. And then this section here, from the tkinter.tk to m.main loop, this is an infinite loop. And it is intentionally an infinite loop. So it will run over and over and over and over and over again. And the reason it does that is because you need to, for instance, you need to keep checking the buttons. You need to keep checking the fields to see if there's information in them. So it just repeatedly refreshes the screen and does everything in the screen. So it's a little bit different than what we've done before, where it's kind of a top-to-prod program and then it ends. The code in this section just repeatedly runs over and over again. So the first thing, you can see M is tkinter.tk. That is just the syntax they use for setting it up. I'm assigning it to variable M, so it's easier to read on my screen. So I've got m.title is counting sheep, and what this does is it's that bar across the top of the screen. Like in PyCharm, it's this bar. It would be text on that bar at the top of the screen. And then I've got a button here, and a lot of times you have a button like this. This is kind of like your Sentinel flag to get out of the program. So if somebody presses this button, you can see it's tkinter.button, and it has to be capitalized to work. And in that, I'm doing m comma, that's always there, and then this is the text that's on the button. And then I can assign the width of the button and then what the button does. The command is what the button does when pressed, and it does m.destroy, which kills the window. And then button.pack is always there, and then it loops again and again and again. So if I run this, you can see that I get a very simple window that doesn't have much on it. I'm going to widen it out because you can't see the header very well. You can see that it says counting sheep, which is what I did when I created the title. And then I created this button, which is a width of 25, and it says stop on it. And now this program is repeatedly looping right now, over and over and over, just waiting for me to do something. If I hit stop, it is going to destroy the window and then get out of this loop, essentially. So if I hit stop, the program ends in this case, because that was the last thing that the program was supposed to do. That's probably the most simple window you could make. I just want you to know now, like the .button method has a ton of parameters that you can set. A ridiculous amount of them. You can set the color, you can set the height, you can set the width, you can make it change colors when it's pressed. You can make it flash. Like, you can do a ton of different things with parameters here. However, you can also keep it very simple like this, where you just don't assign any of them, and then it just defaults everything for you. But just be aware, if you want to get down to a very specific button style, you can. It's just I'm mostly taking defaults here, other than assigning width. But for instance, if I wanted to assign height equals 60, I guess, because why not? I can do that, and when I run it again, you can see I get a ridiculously tall button, right? So I can set those things, but I don't have to. They get set by default for me. Okay, so that's the most simple one. Let's add a little bit of complexity to it now. Let's comment this out now. Oops, hold on. Okay, so this next one, just Okay, cool. Okay, so this next one, I'm adding a little more to it. So just following from the top down, again, M equals take enter. M.title, that same title screen, except we're calling it major decision this time. And then I'm creating a variable that is an int variable. So again, this is a, well, let me just run this so I can talk through it while I'm explaining it. So here's the GUI. If I widen it out, you can see it says major decision. And then I have got a var1 is int var, and that's this checkbox. Or I'm sorry, yeah, that's the checkbox along with this check here. So these two work in tandem. And then I've got take enter check button with the variables underneath it like CIS. And then I assign the variable that I just created here. So this is how you link the button to the text. And then I give it a grid position. So just like everything else in Python, it's a 0 indexed. So row 0, it's saying it's going to put it right here at the top, the first row within the main part of the window. And then I do it again, variable 2 is int var, and then another check button that says BIS, and then I put it in dot grid row 1. And then I've got my destroy button. So this is the same thing I had before, except I'm putting the text choose, and then it goes into row 3. So this is actually kind of a shortcut here. I don't care for this, so I'm going to make this multi-line by doing this, because there are times when this causes issues for you. There we go, and then this should be check. I'm going to change this to check 2. And I'm going to move this down. There we go. This is actually better coding. I didn't like the way I've done it. So, I mean, it ends up being the same window, but you actually run into situations where if you try to assign the grid position at the same time they're creating the variable, it just doesn't work the way you want it to. So I would just separate it out. So you create the object first, and then you put it into the grid on the next row. So I got check.grid, check2.grid, and then my button destroy. So I can check a box, and then I can hit choose, and then it closes the window. Okay, that's great. Let's move on to the next thing that we can do with this now. Okay, so this next one, this time we are actually going to do something with the button click. So you can see I've got a function created that is label.config, and it puts the text nice choice on there when you click or when you check that box. So there's the function. We'll call that here in a minute. Again, title. I'm going to run this so you can see it. Oops. So got my title, major decision. I've got my label. This is we haven't used before, but you can see it's tkinter.label with a capital L, and it says no selection made. You can see that's right there at the bottom. And because it's at the bottom, because you can see I have a label.grid row 4, so it's right down there. And then I've got the same thing I did before. I'm creating a checkbox, putting the text on it. And I've got another checkbox, I'm putting the text on it. Again, this is not great because the grid is in the same one, so that should be separated. And then I've got a button, like I have for my exit button, but this button is my choose button. So you can see tkinter.button, again, M, comma, and then the text on the button is choose. The width is 25. And then I've got that command. So when somebody clicks on it, instead of destroying it, which is what the exit button does, this calls the function on button click. The weird thing about the commands on these, when you call a function, when you do it this way, you can't pass any parameters. It's just a weird nuance of tkinter. So you can only call an empty or a function with no parameters. There is a way using something called lambdas that you can get around that, but we're not going to be doing that this week. So I'm going to call this function, and this function is going to do a label.config text. It's going to change the label text from no selection made to nice choice. That's only if they choose one of them, only if they choose BIS. So you can see if I choose BIS, it says nice choice. If I choose CIS, this is a little wonky because you have multiple checkboxes going on here. But what is showing here is that when you click choose, it actually runs a function. So that's the difference here. We didn't have that before. And then I've also got my exit button like I've had before, which exits out of the window. Okay. Now we've got one more. We do a little bit more than that. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this so you can see it. Okay, so very similar looking to before, but now I've got two functions. So I've got pick CIS as nice choice, pick BIS as are you sure? And again, very similar. There's tkinter, there's the title. The label is set up as no selection made. You can see that on my screen. And it's going into row 4 like it did before. If there aren't enough rows, it'll actually automatically move it up. It doesn't leave blanks. And then I've got the check button variable, which you can see it runs pick CIS if they have that checked, and then BIS if they have the other one checked, and then the exit just like I did before. So now instead of having a button, it's on check. So if I check this, you can see it says nice choice. If I check this, it says are you sure? So essentially what I'm showing here is that you can run two variables. Honestly, this would probably be better as buttons because you're clicking something and you expect something to happen. Typically, a checkbox is not a situation where you automatically do something. You make your selection and then choose next. But this is just a simple implementation here to show you how a very simple GUI works. So I'm going to let you know this the GUI stuff is just it trips people up a little bit. It's a little bit weird. So just start with something simple, get it working, and then build up from there. And then you'll get more and more comfortable with it as you go. So that's all I have to show you this week. I guess if you have any questions, let me know. As always, I'm going to put this presentation, I'm going to zip it up and put it into the discussion board. And so you can download it with all of the structure as it is here, so you can utilize it. Thank you.